Lawmakers gave the nod this week to the biggest budget in Oklahoma's history. The spending blueprint for state government contains increases for almost all state agencies, but there are still critics who say the measure doesn't go far enough to undo years of cuts to core services.
An additional $24.6 million.
Senate Appropriations Chair Kim David introduced the budget for the upcoming fiscal year on Wednesday, calling Senate Bill 1600 the culmination of 16 months of very hard work.
A couple of the highlights of this bill are that it is a $7.6 billion budget bill. This is approximately $745 million increase over fiscal year 18.
More than half of the appropriations, 51.1%, would go to the State Department of Education, which would see its budget increase by almost 20%. While that was welcome news to many in the chamber, there were those who felt more should have been done.
Do you think we can give assurance from this body that we will be investing more in the funding formula going forward?
We are coming out of a recession. We have extra money now, and I believe this body has fought tooth and nail over the last 16 months to get money for education. And no one can say that we haven't done that.
State Senator J.J. Dossett was among several Democrats who weren't convinced the legislature had done all it could for education.
We need to lower class sizes. We need to get rid of 4-day weeks. We need to address the things beyond salary. And I was hoping that this year we'd attack both at the same time, even if it was to mean we do less on salary.
Senate Minority Leader John Sparks noted that despite the increased funding for education, school districts remained in crisis, facing a shortage of qualified teachers in the classroom.
We've made the policy decision that there are other priorities, and we've chosen not to continue to fund education when we had an opportunity to do so.
I think what we need to do now is put more money in the classroom, absolutely. But you can't continue to decimate every other agency and not meet the needs of these kids.
David says those needs went beyond what the state is putting into the classroom.
And it's just important to make sure that we meet their health care needs as it is to give them an education. And I will say that I will argue all day long that it's useless to spend the money in education for those kids without meeting their needs first, the very basic needs these kids have.
The next biggest slice of the budget after education goes to health and social services, which gets 21.3% of available appropriations. Funding increases to agencies like the Oklahoma Health Care Authority will go toward restoring reimbursement rates for health care providers who treat Medicaid patients.
It was important for all of us, I believe, that providers in the state, whether it was mental health, whether it was DHS, or whether it was healthcare itself, that those providers who've just been trying to hang on over the last few years saw an increase, and we're doing everything we can to be able to give them that.
Just over 10% of the budget goes to public safety and the judiciary to help restore services cut during the past decade. That includes the Department of Corrections, which is set to receive a funding increase of 7.1%. For supporters like State Senator Stephanie Bice, is a significant improvement over her first 2 years in the legislature, when the state faced shortfalls of $600 million and $1.2 billion, respectively, prompting steep cuts to state agencies.
Last year, $800 to $900 million budget shortfall. Not much left in rainy day, we've used it all. Again, agency cuts. Those cuts affected every agency, including education, mental health, and substance abuse.
Still, Democrats in both chambers remain unimpressed with the budget plan.
When we talk about last year's budget compared to this year's budget, sure, it looks better, but we've been cutting budgets for 8 to 10 years now. And so just because you've increased a little bit over year doesn't mean that we're truly reinvesting in core services like education and public safety.
State Representative Emily Virgin argues the budget bill falls short of addressing Oklahoma's overcrowded state prisons.
The Department of Corrections, while they are seeing an increase in their appropriation, the criminal justice reform measures that were passed this session have been significantly watered down, and so we're not saving the money there that we could be saving.
One area of concern for both parties is the effect on the budget of a proposed challenge to the tax increases designed to fund teacher pay hikes. The anti-tax group Oklahoma Taxpayers Unite is planning to collect signatures on a referendum petition to put the tax hikes to a vote of the people. Senate Majority Floor Leader Greg Treat says a successful petition drive would be catastrophic.
That would have a devastating impact on this budget overall, in particular to education, because it consumes the biggest part of our budget and it consumes the vast majority of the new revenue. So overall, it'd be devastating to the entire budget.
The budget bill is expected to reach the governor's desk next week, clearing the way for adjournment of the legislative session, possibly as early as May 4th.